Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Sandy Smith, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Captain Andrew Barnes. We warmly welcome the family of Private Robert Roy Williamson, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. If you are able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Robert Roy Williamson. Robert Roy Williamson, known to his family and friends as Roy, was born in late 1900 in the Melbourne suburb of St Kilda. He was the sixth of 10 children born to Scottish immigrants George William and Charlotte Jane Williamson. Before they came to Australia, George had served with the 51st Regiment of Foot in Palestine and with the British India Company, while Charlotte worked as a domestic servant. Roy also had an older half-sister from his father's first marriage. The large family, Margaret, Alison, Myra, William, Blanche, George, Roy, Gladys, Frank, Chaz and Olive, and their parents lived at 80 Argyle Street North in St Kilda throughout Roy's childhood. He and his siblings attended the local school, and Roy spent 6 months training with the senior cadets. After he left school, Roy began working as a porter at the Oriental Hotel on Collins Street in Melbourne, following in his father's footsteps. With the outbreak of the First World War, 3 of the Williamson brothers enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force. First was William, the eldest, who enlisted in January 1915 and joined the 14th Infantry Battalion. Roy was next, on the 16th of September 1915. Although asserting that he was 18 years old and gaining signed consent from his parents, Roy was in fact 15 when he enlisted. Roy was assigned to the 23rd Depot Battalion at Royal Park for his initial training before being transferred to the 16th Depot Battalion in Bendigo. He returned to Melbourne in January 1916 and was assigned to the 15th Reinforcements of the 7th Infantry Battalion with the rank of private. 2 months later, Roy was reunited with older brother George. George had enlisted in November 1915, just shy of his 18th birthday, and was transferred into the 15th Reinforcements of the 7th Battalion on the 4th of March. Privates Roy and George Williamson left Melbourne in HMAT Wiltshire on the 7th of March 1916. In Egypt, the brothers were separated when Roy was transferred first to a training battalion and then to the 4th Division Cyclist Corps at Tel el-Kibir. They were reunited when they sailed from Alexandria in the troop ship Caledonia on the 9th of May, arriving in Marseille 8 days later. From Marseille, the brothers travelled north to the base depot at Etaples for further training. George and Roy were separated again on the 16th of June when Roy marched out to join the 7th Battalion in the field while George remained behind at the base depot. Roy was taken on strength of the battalion at Sai the next day, where it was engaged in training behind the front lines. He would gain his first experience in life in the front lines less than a week later when the 7th relieved the 3rd Battalion in the trenches around Plogstert in Belgium. The battalion remained in the area until the 11th of July, when it began moving into the Somme Valley in preparation for the upcoming attack on Pozières. The village of Pozières and its surrounding ridges offered valuable defensive high ground in the middle of the Somme region. At the start of July, the area was held by the German enemy. Initial attempts by the British Army to capture the village or force the Germans to retreat from their position in early July failed. As a result, a major Allied offensive was launched on the village and surrounds on the 23rd of July 1916. Over the next 42 days, the Allies made 19 separate attacks against the German positions in and around Pozières, ultimately succeeding in capturing the village. The success came at a cost. Allied casualties followed the battle, numbered 23,000. By the 26th of July, the men of the 7th Battalion were facing constant enemy shell fire. Roy, along with 4 other men, had been tasked with carting ammunition away from the front line. Even away from the main action, the area was subjected to heavy enemy shelling. Roy was given instructions to report to a superior officer and ducked away from the rest of his party. He was never seen alive again. Initially, he was declared to be missing in action, but a court of inquiry held on the 16th of June 1917 found that Private Robert Roy Williamson had most likely been killed in action by a shell near Pozières on the 26th of July 1916. He was 16 years old. Roy's family were informed of his fate in July 1917. They continued to search for news that he had somehow survived the battle until 1921, when they were informed by base records that there was no reason to doubt the authenticity of the report that he was killed. William and George returned safely to Australia following the end of the war. Along with their younger brother Chaz and at least 5 of their nephews, both men would go on to serve in the Second World War. Roy's final resting place is unknown. He is commemorated on the Australian National Memorial at Villers-Bretonneux, along with the names of over 10,000 Australians who were killed in France and have no known grave. His name is also listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, along with 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Robert Roy Williamson, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall not grow old as we that are left behind grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.